Do you approve of the picture? Thank you for doing this.
Ben, this is like speed dating.
Is it?
It's one after another.
My head is spinning. Thanks for doing this.
Cool.
You're at basically the end of your first year at CNN. Pretty tough public year.
Really?
I would say that is in my assessment. What do you feel best about?
In the last year?
Yeah.
I feel that we've made significant change as it relates to getting more of our journalism on TV. I'm really proud of that. I remember reading CNN.com, seeing these deep dives, all these great stories, and then not seeing as much of it on television. So the message has been less punditry and more packages. We actually looked at a stat last week, and we've had 30% more pieces on the air in the last year. And that just means that we're leaning more into the incredible news gathering operation that we have. So that, I think the tone has changed, where we're more accessible to different people coming on, and people feel that they'll get a fair shake to have a reasoned conversation on the air. From a digital standpoint, I'm really happy with sort of allowing the digital team to finish what was started and stopped, and then started and stopped again as far as the product and improving the site and getting a new CMS, which is going to roll out next month.
Nothing quite as exciting as a new CMS.
Did it? You know what?
Some of us actually
By the way,
feel that way.
It became very exciting to me.
No normal people.
And look, and from a business standpoint, it was messy when I got here. We were spending money all over the place that wasn't necessarily core to the mission. So the team did a lot of really hard work last year. It was sort of like if you're building a house, it was a gut renovation. But now that was last year, and this year, the fruits of that labor you're starting to see.
This year also kind of kicked off with the thing that for a while defined CNN, which was a crazy Donald Trump scandal. Have you thought? I mean, do you have a sort of crystallized way of thinking about how you are covering Donald Trump differently from how Jeff Zucker did?
I think you covered Donald Trump as part of the news, not as a way of having an outcome of ratings or just cover the news. I thought the way we covered it was exactly on point because it was huge news that day.
Was it different from the way you think your predecessor, CNN, would have covered it?
I don't know that I want to get into that, but I would say that I was comfortable with how we covered it, how CNN covered it in this moment, and the next morning, we were, we did a little of that, but we were on to what was happening in Israel. We were, what was happening in the streets of Paris with live shots. And so you just cover the news, and you don't you get out of your head a little bit and say, should we really be doing this? Should we be? No, just cover the news. It was great pictures. It was a really important event, and we were all over it, as was everyone.
The thing you've done, at least as I've sort of followed your career, really unusually successfully, is made the kind of television that people in this room watch and talk about, that also, that gets ratings, but, Morning Joe.
You almost say that pejoratively.
I do, totally pejoratively. But Morning Joe,
yep.
I guess sort of, like Succession, gets ratings, but also has a kind of cultural relevance that is, I think, extremely unusual in television these days. And, sort of unnecessary. A lot of TV used to be centrally culturally relevant. Now it's mostly not. And I'm curious, how you, with Morning Joe, when you came to CBS this morning, and with Colbert, what is that? How do you think about that thing, that elusive thing?
Well, what is the through line with everything you've mentioned?
I don't know.
Fantastic talent, right? You can't make good television with bad talent. So if you look at Joe and Mika, they are some of the most authentically interesting people that you would want to wake up with. Then you've got what we did with CBS This Morning, and you've got...
Well, this is kind of a dodge. Sure, everybody,
No, it's good
how do you
talent.
make a good football team?
Okay,
football
all right,
player?
well...
But that is not, so,
You never can allow just a nice answer. Yeah, they have to be authentic, and then your job as a producer is to clear the crap out of the way that would get in the way of that relationship with the audience, right? I think when Steven started, he had a lot of people in his head saying, okay, you should be broadcasting to this 48-year-old woman in Iowa, and you can't offend her, and you can't, and
now you're like, just think of Barry Diller. You're talking straight to Barry Diller.
Right, it's like, that's not who he was. So, my job as a producer was not to tell him what to do, but to say, tap into what he wanted to be, what he wanted to show on television. And then you ultimately, the audience only reacts, in my opinion, to authenticity. They know when you're playing television, and that's actually what CNN's advantage is there's authentic journalists there, and you lean into that. But that is the through line of which those shows have had success. CBS This Morning, Gayle King is every person wants to be at that table with Gayle King because she's going to ask the question that they want to know at home, right? So that was the appeal of her. That's why I fought so hard to get her on that show.
Speaking of Gayle King,
yeah.
Charles Barkley made some news for you the other day in the New York Post and said that you're, I guess, just discussing close to a show featuring him and Gayle King. And I'm curious, how would a show, let's say, how would a show like that fit into that style of producing, fit into this news channel?
First of all, wouldn't you love to watch a show like that?
I mean, it depends, I suppose.
Would you like to watch a show like that?
I would
like to watch it.
I would watch the first one.
That's how I felt about the newsletter on Sunday. No, I would read the first one. I didn't say I'd stop
We're going to check the open rate. No, we can't do that.
Without saying whether something like that would happen,
yeah.
How something like that, per se, could possibly fit into a CNN is, I think if we're widening the aperture to be appealing to as wide of audience as possible, there are culturally relevant figures that perhaps don't fit into a specific box that are serious people, but not necessarily in the way that we look at traditional
serious
hosts.
People in the Logan Roy sense of the term.
No, not exactly that. Although the people might not have watched last night. Sorry,
spoiler.
So I would say that if you can get a culturally relevant figure who can then bring in an audience, I care what you think, I care what you have to say, and then pair that with what's actually happening in the world in a way that does not seem foreign to a CNN audience, then I think that might be interesting. It might be different. It might widen who would come to the network with their discretionary time outside of a baseline cable news junkie audience.
Yeah, I'll be watching. Your boss, David Zaslav, seems in some ways like kind of a tough boss. There was I think it was in maybe Jim Cramer's piece that he said that you were that you'd been friends, but now you work for him and you're no longer
the Jim
friends.
Stewart piece.
Jim Stewart piece. Oh gosh, sorry. Yes, thank you. And he also, when he came by to essentially give you this very clear vote of confidence, he also said, he's gotten a lot wrong, we've gotten a lot wrong, that's how it works. Is there anything, what was he talking about? Is there anything you feel like you wish you could have back over the last year?
Sure, but I think what he was saying is the culture of this company is to go try stuff, and if you make a mistake, learn from it and move on quickly. It's not a culture where you sit in a conference room and say, well, if we did this, and what if we tried that, and then, no, let's have a meeting on that next month. And no, it's, you know what, that sounds interesting, that could work, go out and try it. And that's a little bit of what you're seeing at 9 o'clock, is we're just trying some different things as opposed to sort of focus grouping a bunch of ideas. We're going out and trying things, and in the last 6 weeks of doing different types of shows at 9 o'clock, we've got an incredible data set of what resonates with the audience, what might not resonate with the audience. But that he's fully supportive of that, and he is fully, this is a guy who, my second day at this company, he brought me to meet Ted Turner, right? So this is the DNA of CNN is so ingrained in what he believes this company should be, that he's an incredible partner because he believes in the same mission, and that's why I'm here.
Ultimately though, aren't we going to be looking at the ratings? Isn't that? That's going to be the ultimate signal of your success or failure.
I think it's a indicator for sure, because it's an indicator of what the audience is telling you. But that you have to give things time to grow, and you have to give a chance for programming to be on the air. It's very rare that something comes right out of the gate and has an impact. So do ratings matter? At some point, absolutely. Are you going to be called on the carpet if after week 1 you haven't shown 30% increase? No.
When I read about CNN, as I sometimes do,
we're rarely ever written about.
Well, you're in the news a lot, and half the headlines are about our friend Don Lemon, who is here. And when I write about Don Lemon, it gets traffic. What do you make of Don's sort of outsized presence in the coverage of CNN and the buzz about CNN? How do you navigate Don Lemon, who is sitting exactly in my line of sight?
Look, Don Lemon, I'll speak like he's not in the room.
No, yes, please.
Don Lemon is a lightning rod because he really came to prominence during an era where that was celebrated and encouraged in prime time. That was CNN's prime time. That is not CNN's prime time. The world has moved on from that. Don has moved on from that. Don was the first one to go, I'm tired of having to set my hair on fire every night. I want to try something new. And so the Don Lemon who's in Memphis getting that incredible reporting is the Don Lemon we have in the morning, not the one who was in prime time. And we both agree that that's the Don Lemon we want.
The third person, Don Lemon. Thanks for putting up with this, Don. Jen Psaki was in here earlier. Show's off to like a fabulous start. Million views on Sundays. Would
the demo?
I don't know. This is your language, not mine. Beat Fox in the demo, I think I read, whatever that means.
Means it's good.
Means it's good. Okay. Would CNN take a White House press secretary and just and give them a show?
Well, first I would like to say that, believe it or not, when something debuts on cable, whether it's on my network or MSNBC, and does well, that makes us happy. That shows that people can find something new, and I think that is absolutely a great hire for them and a great move for that strategy. Not my strategy. But I think Jen is great. I don't know that I would do that. It would really depend on who it was. I mean, does George Stephanopoulos still fall in that category, right? I
don't know, but I guess I'm just trying to get at, is there a difference? I think there was at least, somebody covering it felt like the CNN and MSNBC brands came together for a while. And I wonder, is that a difference, that it makes sense that for MSNBC in a way it wouldn't for CNN, or is that not?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're, not to dodge it, I think it's really based on who the personality is and what their tenure was like.
It's kind
in
of
that
a
role.
dodge.
Yeah, it's definite dodge, yeah.
And I guess finally, you've been in there.
Finally?
People have there's fancy Korean food upstairs. I got a clock ticking. But I guess, but take your time with this one, because I'm curious. I mean, you took over this cable network, and I'm curious, the consumption patterns are changing a lot. People's connection to television changed a lot over the last year, changed over the last few years. What have been the biggest surprises to you in just kind of the big picture of what running a cable network is like? And where audiences are in particular?
Right. I think, well, remember, no one talks about the digital part of that. And
I thought we got rid of digital.
No.
I thought digital was over.
No.
CNN Plus, RIP.
Well, no. But we have the #1 news website in the world, right? We have 160 to 180 million unique users.
I know Jeff Zucker used to send out these press releases about it. It drove me crazy.
Why would that drive you crazy?
Because he was just going to the front page, bouncing off. Didn't have the kind of deep engagement that we had at BuzzFeed.
Oh. Well, and it was BuzzFeed. Certainly was BuzzFeed. But no, and it's great. Look, it's great. But I think it's what I'm surprised by a lot of things. I am genuinely, having been sort of outside of this world for a little while, for a few years, I am genuinely surprised at the level of scrutiny that CNN itself gets. We're irrelevant, no one cares, but let's all write about it. But as far as running it, I'm completely, I guess not surprised, but encouraged by the people that work there and wanting to do the mission that we're setting forth. Like you don't have people saying, no, I don't want to do more journalism, and I don't want to try these different things. And that's, it's not easy to say to a large organization, let's just try some shit, right? Particularly when we're all, no, we want our certainty, and this is what we're doing at this hour, and this is what we're, like the Dayside that we launched, the News Central that we launched is completely different. It's produced completely differently. It's asking everybody who's part of that show, Sarah Seidner, who I think is here, who is used to being in the field. She goes, this is the closest I've ever been in a studio to actually being in the field.
Everybody showed up to make sure you sort of stayed in line.
Yeah, she's like, I'm here to support you and make sure you don't say anything bad. But like the ability of the whole organization of thousands of people to embrace that and go, yeah, let's try that. Oh my God, this is really cool. What are we doing next? That is not something I would have imagined. So for me, that kind of entrepreneurial spirit that has, especially this year, permeated through the organization is really fun. This is the fun part.
And when it does come to digital, I think CNN Plus maybe had a lot of flaws, but spent a lot of money, was a kind of a lifeboat to a future where the cable affiliate business is no longer paying the bills, and where somebody could one day get CNN's incredible breaking news live coverage of a huge event without being a cable subscriber. And it did feel like, like they sort of scrapped that lifeboat. How do you get back to that? Like, is there down the road a renegotiation with these big cable companies? Like, how do you get to a place where the increasing number of people, ever increasing, who don't have cable can get CNN?
I don't understand that distinction really of like it was a lifeboat and now you've gotten rid of it. I think if we were a standalone company, yes, that was a lifeboat. But now we're part of Warner Brothers Discovery that has a new streaming service, and if we someday would be on a streaming service, we would be on that streaming service that has, tens of millions of subscribers already. So I don't understand why you had to have one or the other. If you are a cable channel and you exist only as a cable channel in your own company, then yes, absolutely, have a plus. But if you're part of a larger organization and at some point somebody decides that the best economic way forward is for us to be streamed on that or others or someplace else, then I don't understand. The most important thing for us right now at this moment at CNN is to make CNN completely indispensable and must have no matter what platform. If you're being delivered content on a chip in your head, you're going to say, I really need to have that CNN linear product. That's my job, is to make sure that we have an indisposable, like we must have that, and then someone will figure out what's the best way to put that forth. But I've got all the confidence in the world that the people who think about that every morning and run a huge streaming platform that is part of Warner Brothers Discovery would maybe someday like to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time here, Chris.
All right. And I do read every Sunday night. I do read.
Means a lot.
You and Max. Thanks.
And Max. Thank you, Max.